Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another series of transformations, people of God. Last month, we talked about you as a person of God. This month-ish, in the next 6 weeks, we're going to be observing Lent together. So this means, my friends, that we're going to kick off today with an Ash Wednesday special service. And the next 6 weeks, we're going to be diving into talking about the book of Mark and thinking about how Jesus' presence on the world and his death have changed our lives and the world forever. That's what we're going to be focusing on, my friends. And we're going to observe this Christian tradition of Lent together, figuring out what it means for us. So that's the scoop for us. Next 6 weeks, we're going to be doing a Lent edition of Transformations, People of God. We are transformed daily by Jesus' presence in our hearts and on the world thousands of years ago. Let's talk about what Lent is and what does it mean for us to observe it as a church. So one key phrase, one key verse that is shared at every Ash Wednesday service you've probably been to is, "From dust you came, and to dust you shall return." Now, in services, they'll have some dust on their hands. Usually it's some ashes from the palm branches from the year before, from Palm Sunday. And so what they'll do is they dip their little finger in the ashes, and they'll make the sign of the cross and say, "From dust you came, and to dust you shall return." Now that sounds a bit grim if you ask me. But what are we talking about here? "From dust you came" is referring to this verse in Genesis where it says, in the very beginning, when God created the world, God took up the dust, the clay, the earth, and made us, made people. Now that's a metaphor. And what's a metaphor? It's something that's a picturesque imagery way of talking about something. God used the basic elements of the universe to construct us. And so it's a metaphor saying, from dust we came, and to dust we shall return. Now that refers to when we eventually will all die. But Ash Wednesday is not just about the beginning of your life and the end of your life. It's about every single day letting go of old parts of yourself that maybe are no longer useful, letting these parts of yourself die and being renewed by the promise that Jesus has got your back and that Jesus is going to help you transform and move and heal and grow into the person you were created to be. You know, sometimes we think about humans coming into the world as humans mess everything up, right? God told us, hey, don't eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And we did it because we're sinful. Then we can see in the Bible, from Adam and Eve to Cain and Abel, God's people throughout human history have just messed things up for themselves, right? Like, we've all had moments where we haven't been our best selves. We've sinned. We've messed up. We've done things that have really kind of made us feel farther away from God. But something that maybe we can think about instead of thinking of ourselves as just these sinful, disastrous creatures is, let's think about it in this way. We are incomplete creations. Now, you may also know this story from Genesis, the very beginning of the Bible, where it talks about how God created the world. You know, it says God created people. God created the oceans and the land. God created the sky and the night. God created all the creatures that live on earth, all of the plants, all of the wildlife. But what's interesting about this creation story is that God doesn't stop creating. Talking about God's creation in 7 days is also another metaphor where we can talk about God takes their time to create. God's story is this ongoing creation. And so just like God, you and I have the opportunity to create ourselves, to be awakened to our new versions of ourselves every single day. And that's possible because God lives inside of us, and God's nature is to constantly change and respond and grow and love. So yes, it may be sort of a grim reality to talk about, from ashes you came, to ashes you shall return. Okay, yes, we're talking about death here, but also we're talking about these smaller deaths. We're talking about how life, the essence of life is that we constantly are renewed. We are transformed by the love and the light and the God in our lives. There is an eternal quality to life. Yes, we are dust, but we are of earthly dust, springing forth from a multi-billion-year holy adventure. Yes, we are dust, but this dust has been in existence for billions of years, and new life and new creation spurts out, grows from all this, from the old dust, and creates something new. We are part of God's story that spans over millions and billions of years. God's story doesn't end with death. We know that And we're looking forward to that when Easter comes at the end of the 6 weeks of Lent. The point here in observing Ash Wednesday is really to get in touch with the nature of ourselves as human beings, which is to let go of parts of ourselves, to change, to grow, knowing that death will never have the final say. That's what we celebrate at Easter, and that's what we're ramping up towards, is that, man, with all this death and incompleteness that we experience, we can always expect that God, in the end, will lift us up and heal us and transform us into something more and more beautiful. So, my dear friends, we are not at church, but we still get to observe Ash Wednesday. So I invite you to now go grab a little bit of flour. Maybe ask someone in your house to help you out if you don't know where it is. Get a little bit of flour and bring it to your computer, and we'll do a little Ash Wednesday service together. Okay, now that we're back, I want you to take your flour, maybe like lick your thumb a little bit, get your thumb a little bit, dip it in the flour, and then we'll do this together. Repeat after me as you make the sign of the cross with the flour on your forehead. Okay, here we go. From dust you came, and to dust you shall return. It's okay if it's not perfect. So in conclusion, this is the point of Ash Wednesday, my friends. We were made as incomplete creations. God is constantly working in our lives to bring about beautiful change. As we let go of old parts of ourselves, those parts of ourselves seem to die, and they become this grounding, this dust which helps us grow in a new and more beautiful way. We can become more like God, and we can become even more fully what God created us to be. Life is an adventure with ups and downs, in losses and joys. But my friends, in the end, death will not win. You will not be in the dumps forever. You will not be feeling insecure and doubtful and unsure of yourself forever. God is working with you every day to bring about a new, transformed you who just feels so in touch with themselves, so free to be you, so aware of your love, of the love inside of you. These are the things that God hopes for us, my friends, and we will continue to work together to become renewed and restored by God's love, to be okay with not being complete, to be okay with not having it all together all the time. Because we know in the end, the promise is always there that we are going to be picked up, that we are going to be transformed, and that life with God is always an adventure and a mystery. Peace and love, my friends. Let us continue on in our Ash Wednesday meeting.